All right, welcome back everybody. You guys are being great sports, right? This is lesson 7, our second to last lesson, which means we're almost done. In this lesson, we're going to talk about taking all of those components, right? Teaching, assessment, some of the frameworks we use and things like that, and putting them together into the design that we're using this semester, okay? So here is the overview for lesson 7. We're going to talk about the materials we use, the textbook and the online component. We'll talk about how the grade is broken down in a typical, let's say, Spanish 101, 102, 201, and how many percentage points or how much weight is given to each component. We're going to talk about sort of this cycle that students go through where they prepare before a class, practice during class, and then reinforce after each class. And then finally, we're going to see how all of this plays out by illustrating it on a segment of the syllabus calendar. So hang in there. Let's go ahead and delve into these topics. We're almost done. All right, so let's start off talking about the materials that we're currently using in our Spanish. This is going to be limited to the Spanish 101 through 201, so the first 3 semesters. The textbook is Conéctate, right, from McGraw-Hill. So students will have the textbook, right, either a printed copy or an electronic textbook, an ebook. And then every student will have and must have the Connect, which is the online component to accompany Conéctate. So they use both of these materials, Conéctate and Connect. All right, here is the breakdown of the grade, and 101, 102, 201 will look similar, right? This is an example of Spanish 101. And this information is on the syllabus that you will be provided, but it's important to know how to explain it to students in case they have questions, right? And so you can see that 20% of the grade in Spanish 101 comes from assignments, which might be activities in Connect, the online component, that are assigned, right? They're already ready for students, waiting for students to do them, and they're in the syllabus. Other assignments might be reinforcement activities that you as the instructor might assign. And there are other assignments in there like journaling activities and things like that. Those are worth 20% of the grade. Now, quizzes, right? There are 5 quizzes, right? 1 for each chapter. Those are worth 20%, these learning checks, vocabulary and grammar quizzes. Participation or other assignments, right? Other components that you determine as the instructor, those go into a category that's worth 10%. And then the next, right, 4 rows on our chart are the assessments, right? The assessment program. And it is high stakes, as you can see, right? They can do all their assignments, have great participation, and ace all the quizzes, and they're sitting at 50%. The other 50% comes from the assessments, right? And these are performance assessments, except for the last one. So there are 2 interpretive communication tasks, 2 presentational communication tasks, and 1 integrated performance assessment, right? And these are plotted out on the course calendar, which you will have received. And then finally, at the end of the semester, worth 10%, is that OPI-style oral interview, which you will conduct with your students at the end of the semester. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about how students move through a typical week, a typical chapter, a typical unit, right? As I mentioned in the previous video, our approach to instruction and assessment is communicative, and we're following a flipped classroom model, meaning that students are expected to prepare outside of class, practice in class. So this is reflected in our unit planning, and it's extremely important that students understand what their role is. They must prepare before coming to class. And if they don't prepare before coming to class, they're going to be lost because class is going to be practice time. So, as I mentioned, I've recorded a separate video explaining this to students, and you should have them watch it. So each week on the course syllabus calendar is organized sort of, if you want to think of it as a cycle, in which students prepare before class, doing mostly Connect exercise, but also reading designated pages in the textbook. They practice during the class sessions. They'll either have 2 or 3 class sessions per week. And then after those classes, right, they will do reinforcement work, even as they're preparing for the next week and the cycle begins again. So I think it's helpful to see a segment, just an example from the syllabus course calendar. In this case, it's an example from a Spanish 101 calendar. So you can see how this prepare, practice, and reinforce cycle plays out. You can see on the left-hand column, at least the second column there where it says read and do and connect, those are the activities that students should be told to do before the class sessions that week. In other words, they are due, if you look on there, they are due Monday morning of the week, right? The students are going to be taking these classes. So they need to have completed all of these things or else they will be late in the online component. Then they're going to come to class and they're going to practice the items, right, in that middle column. That middle column is helpful because it indicates to you as an instructor some of the things that you should focus on in the classroom. But from the student perspective, they need to be aware of that, but they're coming to class to practice. And then the things that they will do after those classes and before the next week begins, you can see that the due date is on Sunday, are reinforcement, right? Reinforcement activities. And so as they're completing that reinforcement, they're also starting to do the preparation for the next week, and the cycle continues. Wow, all right, that's it for lesson 7. We only have one lesson to go. Lesson 7 was an important one on our current course design. If some of those things aren't quite making sense in your mind, it's okay, because that particular content that we've just seen in this lesson is something we spend time in our face-to-face orientation, how we put all those things together, use the syllabus and the course calendar and things like that. Okay, so don't panic. We're going to talk about that in our face-to-face training. All right, let's move on to lesson 8. We're just going to talk about some best practices in general and in language instruction. All right, I'll see you guys at the next lesson. Lesson 8, last one.